Today is December 9th, 2015. Last week I experienced my first ayahuasca ceremony and I felt like it was important to record it. And before it fades away, video seems easier than writing it. So my first ceremony was with the Church of the Santo Daime, which is the only, or one of the only, legal churches that serves ayahuasca brews in the U.S. and specifically in Oregon. The law allows it. I think other states don't. So I went through an interview process to be accepted, and they have different kinds of ceremonies. They call them works, and the one that I signed up for, I forget the name of it, but I managed to sign up for the longest one that they have. And so my sponsor came and gave me a ride and took me to the location. Right away, I had to wear all white. Women have to wear long skirts and be modest, not show cleavage. And they didn't have any rules on preparing for the ceremony as far as diet requirements or anything like that. So I didn't eat a lot of crap beforehand, but I wasn't super strict. So I showed up, and right away they separate the men and the women, and I hung out in a room with a bunch of the women as they got ready, and everyone was extremely nice and really excited that it was my first ceremony. At the ceremonies or at the church, you are either a member, which is also called a fardado, or you're a beloved guest. And the members wear special outfits depending on the ceremony. This ceremony they wore what's called their farda blanca outfit, which is for the women a long white pleated skirt with a green little pleated skirt, and then like a white button down and a green sash that kind of looks like a Girl Scout sash or something like that, that has different brooches on it. And then the men wear white pants with green stripes on the side, kind of sporty looking, and a white shirt and a tie and a white blazer on top of that. But if you're just a beloved guest like I was, you just wear all white. So to they received I went, when they were ready to begin the ceremony, I signed in and gave my donation, and then I was guided to a specific place to stand. They organized the room around this 6-pointed star, and so like there's a row of people on this side of the star, this side, this side, so it's like what's 6, like a is that hexagonal, I think. But yeah, so they arrange the room, and they have a very specific way that they arrange you as, and which I don't understand. That's one of my questions, because they rearranged me throughout the ceremony. They would put me in different positions, but the idea is that they're trying to flow energy. And they gave me a couple of hymn books, and we started out standing and did a whole bunch of Our Father and the whole Rosary, Hail Mary, which I've been to one Catholic Mass, so this was all like way out of my zone of familiarity as far as like religion and all that. But I had the books to look at, so I had the words. And after doing that many Hail Marys, I memorized it, so that was cool. And then after the Hail Marys, we started the hymn book, which was the Icaros. They're hymns that are written in Portuguese, um, and everyone in there seemed to know the melody for them, and they have the translation next to them so you can see what it actually means. And the hymns are about various things. Sometimes they reference Jesus, Mary, and Joseph. A lot of times they're about nature and about God and about love and finding beauty. The sentiment in them was really beautiful and not overly religious. And the Daime doesn't care what you believe. The ceremonies are Christian influenced, like as far as the hymns and what's spoken, but they believe that the medicine is actually the teacher. So it's not like you have to pledge any sort of belief to participate. So then we spent like hours singing these hymns and dancing. You dance while you're singing them, and it's not like a freestyle dance. It's like a shuffle, like a 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, like this step back and forth, and everyone is doing it for hours. I think we sang like 180 of these hymns, not joking. But before we started singing, they did the sacrament, they call it, which is where they serve the ayahuasca, and we lined up, and the fardadas get to go first to get their ayahuasca, and you go up and you're given a shot glass of the drink, and some people would like hold it up to their third eye or pray or whatever, or do the cross and drink it. And so I went up and got mine and threw it back, and it tasted like it was like maybe half a shot glass full. It wasn't very much. It was easy to just shoot, and it tastes like not as bad as I thought it would. It tasted like if coffee went bad or got really fermented or something like that. Very earthy, but not disgusting. I feel like one time I tried to drink a kratom mixture, and that was way grosser. So this was not that bad, but one of the girls had a tin of Altoids that she would offer whoever wanted it after each sacrament, and I definitely was hitting her up for that. That was a pro move, so take mints if you do it. So we all had a shot, and then started the singing and dancing, and you're allowed to take breaks if you need to, but you're encouraged to come back to the group if at all possible. So I took the sacrament, and we were doing the singing and dancing, and it's going on for a while, and I'm like, I didn't have a watch, but I was like mentally trying to keep track of how much time it was, and I'm anticipating a psychedelic experience, because I've had those before, and I'm like waiting for it, and like an hour and a half goes by, and I didn't really feel anything. And then they take a pause, and they're like, okay, we're going to do another service of ayahuasca. So I went up, same thing, and then came back, and more of the singing and dancing. They after we got through the first 30 hymns, they had some musicians accompanying, a couple of guitarists and a guy doing drums, which was nice. I really liked the live music element. And meanwhile, the women and the men are still separated on separate sides here. And of the fardados, some of them volunteer to be what's called guardians, and they take turns having this role. Um, but a guardian basically is looking out for everybody, and if someone like needs to go take a break or needs to go lie down or needs an escort to the restroom or something like that, then they're there to just like attend to you and make you comfortable, but also like they encourage you to come back to the group as soon as you're ready. But they're super nice, taking care of everyone, and it felt really safe and nice and cared for and loved to have like that attention. So we did another like hour or so of the singing and dancing, and I was honestly like really I don't know, like 2.5 hours into it, I was like starting to get pretty bored, and I wasn't feeling the ayahuasca, and um, my feet were starting to hurt, and like we're singing all these in Portuguese, and I speak some Spanish, but the Portuguese pronunciation rules are definitely different, which I learned quickly, so it was hard to follow along. So often I would just dance and like read the words or not read the words or try to, I don't know. I was just trying to stay in the game, basically. It was kind of exhausting. Then we took another sacrament, and I was starting to, feel I don't know, super. Oh, okay. So yeah, or the third one. Okay, the third one. Sorry, I went up and the guy serving was like, "Hey, how are you feeling?" Or like, "Are you feeling anything?" And I was like, "No, not really." And he was like, "Well, this brew is stronger," and he gave me a bigger serving of it. So I chugged that and went to stand and back in the circle for singing and dancing, and uh, then after like 30 or 45 minutes, I noticed that the lights started seeming brighter, like everything seemed brighter, and I was looking at the music stand in front of me with the hymns on it, and I noticed that it was like seemed closer. So like my perceptions of distance were starting to warp, kind of. So I was like, okay, I feel something happening, and then I started to feel like this elation and like a sense of beauty, and I felt like this second wind energy of the like singing and dancing, and I was starting to like feel I don't know, like admiring the power of it and the dedication, and I watched this woman needed a break, so she took a seat at the six or at the star table, and I watched as this other woman who had a baby strapped to her. She went and got a blanket and rolled it up and put it in the chair behind that lady so she would have some lumbar support. And I they were just doing it quietly, and I noticed it, and it struck me as such a beautiful moment of just like what an expression of love and caring, and yeah, I was just like overcome with how beautiful that act was, how beautiful and simple it was, and then I started to cry, and then I closed my eyes, and often there's a much longer story to explain this, but I have like psychic visions, or I see visions on drugs or not, and but definitely more intense on drugs. And so I closed my eyes to see if I was getting any of those, and I saw this like, it looked like a spinning atom with more rings, and then like I watched it expand, and I saw like these I don't know, it almost looked like a ticker tape around what would be the nucleus of it, and it had like this like alien language that I've seen before, and it wasn't anything so much profound in what I was seeing itself, so much as it I realized it was I was having this connection to universe, higher consciousness. I don't know. I don't know what it is. I call it the mothership, but just as a joke. But I was like, oh, like it's just this feeling of like, even though I don't understand it, it's like a familiarity and like a, oh fuck, this is real. Like this is not just some woo woo shit. Like this, like I'm really seeing this, um, and that made me cry. Like to feel that connection, it was like so validating. And even though I wasn't really like tripping, I don't know, it was really a significant moment, and just felt really good to have that connection. Um, and then shortly after that, I was feeling like extra sensitive to the energy. Suddenly, um, like it was palpable. My hands started tingling. I could feel like it was like a current running out of my palms, and and I was starting to feel like lightheaded. Like I could feel it was like I was in like a magnet or something. It was just like wah, wah, and I'm like started feeling like kind of nauseous, and so I was really debating going and lying down, but they really discourage that unless you absolutely need to. Like the Daime services focus on or seem to focus on group energy, rather than like a personal experience. At least this service, this work, um, that's how it's oriented, and that's also why they were serving the weak brews. I later learned because they need you to have coordination to maintain this singing and dancing thing. So it was never going to be a trip and balls experience. Although a couple people did like have to go lie down and were like shaking, and a few people puked at some point. So people were still getting the effects. But yeah, so I'm standing there, and like my perception's changing, and I'm like feeling this like emotion, connection, and I'm like starting to feel like, whoa, maybe I need to like lie down. I don't know if I can keep standing up and doing this. And then, right as I'm thinking that, one of the women that was leading it was like, all right, everyone, like, stay grounded, like, reconnect, like, feel your feet on the floor, because this is getting wobbly, but we're gonna make it through it. And, like, when she said that, suddenly I realized it wasn't just me, and I looked around and everyone was like kind of had that same look in their eyes. And then that at that point I kind of got it. I was like, oh, that's like the whole point. Like we are building this group energy, and it actually felt like we were like ascending, like rising up and higher. Like that's what it felt like. And so then I'm like, oh, like okay, this is really powerful. Um, so so then that, yeah, just by her like acknowledging that feeling, and then I like realized, okay, this is what's going on, then I was able to stay put. But so we kept doing it for a little while longer, and then like maybe 20 minutes later I was like, my feet were hurting, and I was like still feeling nauseous, and I was like, okay, I actually do have to go sit down. And then like right after, so I excused myself, and right after I sat down, they took a break, so it was good timing. And we took a 30-minute break, and you could either go downstairs and, you know, have a snack and socialize, still keeping genders separate, or you could like chill out in the main like ceremony space. They turned the lights down, and I grabbed a yoga mat and I laid down for 30 minutes and kind of just meditated and dozed and uh, rested. And I didn't really have any more like visions after that. When I After 30 minutes, I got up and I was like surprisingly quite energized, and my feet didn't hurt anymore, and I was ready for round two. Oh, yeah, I forgot to mention um, when I was starting to feel that energy build and getting the sudden like feeling of the group energy, I was like looking at the hymns, and I was seeing like as I was reading them, it was like something was like highlighting the words in gold, and uh, like almost like if you know those old sing-along things where the ball dancing on it or the words change color. It was kind of like that, but they were like shimmery gold as I was reading them or as they were being sung. And I had this insight that that these hymns that we were singing about this like world of peace, and you know a lot of the hymns are about um, the belief of like second coming and peace on earth and heaven on earth and stuff like that. Um, like while we were singing those originally, I don't know. I just like didn't really get it. Like why are we singing this to God or whatever? But when I started seeing the gold writing it, it kind of flipped my perception, and I realized we're not like reading this to God. We're writing this to God. This is like the story that we want. Not We're not telling a story. We're writing the story, which is pretty different, distinct idea, um, and vibes a lot more with me and what I believe as far as like manifestation and that kind of stuff. So, but anyway, so with that changed perception and a nice half hour of rest, I was ready to keep going. And we had another sacrament, which was the same stronger brew, and went back to singing and dancing. And I kind of had like another wave, not as intense as that first one of just like connection and highness, and only the only vision I got off of that one was like I was looking at one of the leaders as he was talking, and I closed my eyes, and it looked like a kaleidoscope of six-pointed stars, like, which I thought was very interesting, considering that's like the image that one of the most important symbols for the Santo Daime. So that's cool, because my visions don't always like correlate with anything that I can tell or that I have context for, but that was very specific. And yeah, and then we continued the ceremony, but it kept going, and the songs are like pretty long, and there's so many of them, and my feet were hurting, and I was also starting to get hungry, and I wasn't feeling very grounded, and I was getting cranky, and so I excused myself and went to go check the time, and it was 1 in the morning, and we had started the ceremony at like 5 p.m. and I have a dog at home who was in a crate, and I don't like to leave her for more than 8 hours, so suddenly I was like feeling really emotional because she had been in the crate for so long, and I didn't realize I was going to be gone that long, and my feet hurt, and I was cranky, and I was just like really distraught and over this. And so I came back up and I like sat to the side and I just started like allowing myself to really feel sad, that sadness and that like guilt about my dog. And then I started crying, and one of the guardians came over and handed me a box of tissues and kind of stood by me and just held space. She was really sweet, and she asked me if I would come back up to sing, and I was like, no. Like, I was actually like feeling anger coming up, even though it wasn't toward them, but I don't know, I just had all these emotions that were manifesting. Um, And so I mean, I recognized that the anger had nothing to do with her, but I was still feeling it, and I like was sitting like cross-legged, like crying and just like I want to go home, like I wanted to leave, but you're not supposed to leave. You can't leave until the work is closed. Um, so uh, yeah, and I crossed my legs, and she was like uncross because they don't like they're running energy, and crossing your legs closes that. Um, but yeah, so then she was like, well, we're about to finish, so will you come up for the last one? So I was like, okay. So I went up there and I went up for the last hymn, and then after that, we did more like Hail Marys and Our Fathers, and then the leader um, like talked about some of the members of the church that need some prayers, and so like she phrased it that like this energy that we've built up, this healing energy, let's send it, some to them and to anyone. Like we speak a name of whoever you would like to send this energy to, um, and then like the rest went up to, I guess, the world, I suppose. Oh yeah, I remembered earlier in the ceremony at one point we also lit candles. We all had like little candles to hold, and we um, sang a hymn about forgiveness or something. And anyway, it was a ritual of like confessing our sins and sending that to the light to be absolved, which pretty sweet. so so yeah, we did that, and then they closed the work, and uh, then we went home. I got home at like after 2 in the morning, and my dog was fine, but I felt really bad. But yeah, and a lot of people commended me on how I stuck in there. I mean, the stamina on those church members, those Fredados, is incredible, and they all know the hymns by heart. I felt every emotion throughout that long ceremony. I had the moments of joy, just the despair, the boredom, the excitement. But I was really moved by how kind and I don't know, the intention seems really good and really light and safe. I felt protected. I feel like um, the way that they're using this medicine is very specific. It's different than how I've heard other ceremonies use it, but I think they're using it for good. I've heard that the way ayahuasca like is kind of a tool that can be used for good or not for good, depending on the container that it's used in and who's leading it, or the shaman or the priest or whatever. And um, I'm really glad that this exists. The the religious influence is still kind of a turnoff for me, but I'm open. I understand the value of ritual, and a lot of it's just in like a group intention. Um, yeah, so after effects, I went home and I laid down and I had like some mild like colors, geometry, closed eye visuals. I slept fine, and I woke up the next day feeling very peaceful. Usually I have like anxiety, and I didn't really feel much that day, and I don't know, everything seemed a little crisper and calmer. So I would describe it as an afterglow, a mild afterglow, but it was a very mild ayahuasca experience. Um, so yeah, that's it. I'm planning on attending other works with the Santo Daime and my next ones will not involve singing and dancing. They do have seated works and ones that are more quiet or have much less singing and dancing. Like I said, this one was like the longest, most like taxing one. You know, when I told people it was my first time, they're like, "Wow, you picked quite a long one to go to." So I don't know. I mean, it was the it was the perfect one. I don't regret going to it. I don't. If I had known ahead of time, maybe I wouldn't have picked it, but it gave me quite a good impression, like a full impression of the Daime and its members, and yeah. So I will attend more. I don't know if I will become a member, but who knows? So thank you.